Night City was like a deranged experiment in social Darwinism, designed by a bored researcher who kept one thumb permanently on the fast forward button. The title of this video sounds extreme, but I promise you I brought the receipts. The Department of Governmental Efficiency over the past few weeks has been probably the most talked about thing in the news in the USA and around the world. It went into the US Treasury and has been uncovering projects the USA has spent money on. DOGE has made a great show of letting you know the more silly and ridiculous sounding spending ventures. Some of you will say,
"Fuck all these lunatic lawyers and chicken shit bureaucrats!"
And some of you will cry foul. That isn't really what I'm here to talk about. The low-hanging fruit of the USAID and other organizations I don't really believe are DOGE's true goals. These organizations just aren't really the big money, but it also isn't just about money. It's about testing the limits of power, and it appears to be out of a playbook of a tech philosopher named Curtis Yarvin. Yarvin isn't a nobody. He rubs elbows with multiple billionaires, and his ideas have been very much praised by said billionaires, people like Peter Thiel and Mark Andreessen. J.D. Vance has also praised some of his writings. More on him later. Yarvin has been writing for years about how democracy in America has essentially failed.
Gentlemen, this is Democracy Manifest.
And that if this country is going to be great again, then we need to look to the next type of government to carry us into that next golden era.
The weak will be purged, and the strongest will thrive, free to live as they see fit. They'll make America great again!
What the hell are you talking about?
I understand some of you will say, this country was never a democracy. And others will say, yes, democracy has failed. And others still, no, democracy, it works very well. Hang in there. All of those statements are irrelevant to what Yarvin wants anyway, which is he wants a king, or maybe a queen. He wants a monarch.
Are you the next monarch?
The reason he wants the USA to be governed by a monarch is that he compares them to how a CEO runs a company. And in the Silicon Valley world, there is no greater force of goodness than an efficient and successful CEO. The problem is we don't have a monarchy here in the US. So how do we get the next best thing? Well, he wrote a playbook on how to get there. 2 years ago, he wrote something called The Butterfly Revolution. It reads as a kind of fantastical what-if scenario if Trump were to win the 2024 election, which Yarvin did not believe was possible, funnily enough. The piece begins by outlining a plan for centralizing power under the executive branch and creating, well, a dictator. We've got to risk a full power start, a full reboot of the US government. We can only do this by giving absolute sovereignty to a single organization, with roughly the powers that the Allied occupation authorities held in Japan and Germany in the fall of 1945. This level of centralized emergency power worked to refound a nation then for them, and so it should work now for us. Yarvin creates this metaphor of winning the presidency as the opportunity to plant a larva in the White House that, once inside, can blossom into a butterfly. This butterfly does have something peculiar about it. Namely, Trump is not meant to be the real power in the White House. He writes, Trump himself will not be the brain of this butterfly. He will not be the CEO. He will be the chairman of the board. He will select the CEO, an experienced executive. This process, which obviously has to be televised, will complete by his inauguration, at which the transition to the next regime will start immediately. For Trump, being president will be exactly like it was, all the photo ops and more, without any papers to sign, decisions to make, etc. The CEO he picks will run the executive branch without any interference from Congress or courts, probably also taking over state and local governments. Most existing important institutions, public and private, will be shut down and replaced with new and efficient systems. Now, some of this might start to sound familiar. namely Elon being the brain of the butterfly, as he calls it. What is happening in our government now definitely isn't exactly as Yarvin describes, but it's kind of close. It's if the butterfly revolution was a backflip on skis, what we got was kind of a backflip, but our legs went wide and we kind of landed awkwardly, almost lost our balance a couple times, but we're definitely still skiing. Trump's weird tariff stuff wasn't in the plan, and DOGE hasn't gone after anything at the state level yet, but the night is young. Another feature of Yarvin's idea is something called RAGE, retire all government employees. This really seems to be very similar to DOGE, but DOGE is cloaked in the veil of governmental efficiency, whereas Yarvin was much more explicit. If DOGE goes into all the government agencies and claims to find corruption and waste, then it has all the ammo it needs to essentially carry out RAGE. Remember, I am coming from the perspective that this plan is to destroy the administrative state, because that's what J.D. Vance himself said would be the goal.
Is that we should just seize the administrative state for our own purposes. We should fire all of the people. I mean, I think Trump is going to run again in 2024. I think he'll probably win again in 2024. I think that what Trump should do, like if I was giving him one piece of advice, fire every single mid-level bureaucrat, every civil servant in the administrative state, replace them with our people. And when the courts, because you will get taken to court, and then when the courts stop you, stand before the country like Andrew Jackson did and say the Chief Justice has made his ruling, now let him enforce it.
J.D. Vance didn't say anything about let's go into government agencies and look for waste, fraud, and abuse. He said, let's fire every bureaucrat and replace them with our people, meaning people loyal to Trump and Elon. All the people praising DOGE as a godsend should really listen to what J.D. Vance said here, because this is what I believe DOGE is all about. Remember, all those guys know Curtis Yarvin's work. They love his work. Why does the butterfly revolution line up so well with what is going on right now? Yarvin doesn't give a damn about waste, fraud, and abuse. Yarvin thinks democracy has failed and that we need to destroy it and start something new. I am telling you guys, DOGE is a way to test this. They know if they just came out and said, well, we think the government doesn't work, and so we're going to start over, not as many people would be on board with the idea. But if DOGE is about rooting out corruption, who likes corruption? Nobody likes corruption. Get rid of it. Fire those
chicken shit bureaucrats!
Next, we move on to the more speculative part of the plan. You like Night City? You want to live there? Well, this is where it gets pretty nova, or pretty awful depending on your political sensibility. After you strip the government bureaucracy away, now you can make the magic happen. Yarvin wrote in his blog years ago that the country should be divided up into what I would describe as corporate fiefdoms. The example he created for San Francisco area where he lives was called Frizz Corp. This corporation of what was once San Francisco would be fully surveilled and have lots of security around the perimeter. The only way in or out of Frizz Corp would be a special card that you would swipe at the gates before entering. If you lived inside Frizz Corp, you would be surveilled even inside your own home. This would be a way of making sure that everyone was safe. This techno-feudal future is admittedly something that Yarvin himself thinks the American people aren't quite ready for yet.
It's not exactly time for that yet.
We all have to be slowly acclimated to our jellied Nutribricks and paychecks and Amazon credits. The scary point to all of this is that I actually think this might be the plan. Yarvin paints this remaking of the American government to be a very benevolent force, but the ivory tower pontification usually misses the mark on the dirtiness of power. When you get injured on the job, do you think Frizz Corp or Night City or Neo Tokyo is going to give you disability payments, health care? I won't even mention stuff like Social Security or Medicare and Medicaid. Powerful people view unproductive, unhealthy, and poor people as a drain on society. And you can argue whatever the hell you want and say it's their fault or whatever. In an opioid-addicted, processed food smothered populace who is up to their eyeballs in debt and can't watch a YouTube video without seeing 3 ads about getting it up and the latest deep-fried cream-filled double bacon stackinator, I'll go halvesies with y'all and say it's 50-50. 50% their fault, but 50% not. Curtis Yarvin has this idea that unproductive people should be given some kind of fancy virtual reality world to hang out in to placate them. This already sounds a lot like a lot of video games, to be honest. The issue right now is that we don't have some Oasis Ready Player One shit to stick everyone we consider to be lazy. And I wouldn't trust a corpo state to decide who is lazy and who is productive. In the coming days, the DOGE crew is going to test the power of the courts. And if the courts fold under DOGE, then expect things to happen pretty fast. At that point, you're just along for the ride. If you don't like what is happening in government, then you might want to be getting into the streets, like yesterday, because once they assert power, there is going to be nothing stopping them from doing whatever they want. Maybe they'll let you protest, maybe they won't. Maybe they'll send in the cavalry and crack your skull. It's whatever they think is best for them. Think about this. They're destroying an organization called the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and not touching defense spending where Elon gets all of his government subsidies. That really should be all you need to know. Better lock in, chooms. Not all of us can afford to go to Cosa Nostra Pizza University or Arasaka Academy.